At its core, Agenda 21 is about control. Control of the land, natural resources, and entire populations. When you boil it down, there are 9 basic tenets of Agenda 21. Move citizens off private land and into urban housing. Create vast wilderness spaces inhabited by large carnivores. Eliminate cars and create walkable cities. Support chosen private businesses with public funds for sustainable development. Make policy decisions that favor the greater good over individuals. Drastically reduce the use of power, water, and anything else that creates carbon pollution. Use bureaucracies to make sweeping decisions outside of democratic processes. Increase taxes, fees, and regulations. And finally, implement policies meant to incentivize a reduced population.
A song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thou silence, O power. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom, and the Ishmaelites, of Moab, and the Hagarenes, Gebal, and Ammon, and Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Ashur also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot. Selah. Psalm chapter 83, verse 1 to 8. Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash, and double honors to our venerable apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well, and peace and blessings to the Lord's elect, the house of David. All right, so Brother Haran coming back at you with a quick lesson, and Lord willing to be edifying and uplifting unto the elect. And today I'm going to go into the UN. All right, I wanted to get a little history, all right, of what the United Nations is all about, you know, why they were created, when they were created, how it all kind of came into inception back in 1945. And, you know, I'll say the goal, right, as to why they were created. We're going to read about that. And then, Lord willing, we're going to get into this UN Pact for the future that they have going on, which I believe came out September this month. All right. And it's basically we're preparing for the fulfillment of the mandatory implementation of the Motb. Okay. Now, for those who can't see it, you know, you're just not meant to see it because we're so late in the game and they're making it so obvious with certain terminology that they're using that, you know, it's kind of hard not to see it. You know, if you're of the elect, it's very easy to see. But if you're not of the elect, then that's when the problems come in. Okay. But we're going to go into this real quick and then we're going to read about the Pact for the Future adopted and see if we could break it down, because the kind of language that they use, you know, like they always do, it's always double speak, you know, a lot of Spanglish in there. So it's always good to take time and, you know, break it down, you know, especially going into the words. Okay. But let's get a little bit on the United Nations. Okay. It says the United Nations, the largest international organization in which sovereign states join efforts to promote and safeguard world peace and security and peaceful international cooperation. Right? Peace and security is almost like what the Apostle Paul said, okay, in the book of First Thessalonians. Okay, let's see if we can pull that up real quick and then we're going to flow from there. All right, so they're saying peace and security, or the Apostle Paul said in First Thessalonians, the 5th chapter, go down to verse 3. Here's the book of First Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3. It says, for when they shall say peace and safety, right? Peace and security. Peace and security. That's what the UN is standing for. So now they're saying that we're going to create a new pact that's basically going to broaden our peace and security. See? So let's read. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Okay? So again, those who are going to be in agreement with this so-called pact, right, which is pretty much the newer order put in a different way, right? They went from global reset. It wasn't really catching on, so they said, nah, we have to come up with a different name, just like they did with the Federal Reserve, right? They were going to call it I hate when this happens. Damn. They were going to call it after a name of one of those banking financiers, if I'm not mistaken. And then I forget who, the names of this guy, but he goes, yo, you don't want to do that because then it's going to raise red flags. You want to make it seem, as innocent as possible. You might be a dragon, but you want to appear as a lamb, So that's how they do things. They always come out, they'll bring it into the open, but they don't put it as is intended to be, because if they did it that way, people would object against it. That's why they normally have something known as problem, reaction, solution, because the solution is typically, right, they need some type of problem for people to accept it. Because if it wasn't done that way, it will always have some form of resistance or opposition, fierce resistance and opposition. Okay, so let's go back to what we're reading here about the United Nations. All right, it says they were there to. They said it's an international organization, right? The largest international organization in which sovereign states, meaning nations, join efforts to promote and safeguard, quote unquote, safeguard world peace, all right, and security and peaceful international cooperation, all right, among the nations. It was established in 1945 after the forces of aggression and fascism were defeated in World War II. Its membership consisted of 159 nations in 1987. Okay, and now you fast forward to 2024, going into 2025. That number has gone from 159 back in 1987 to 194 nations, if I'm not mistaken. Right, so pretty much the whole entire world, with the exception of, I believe, the Vatican or Vatican City and Palestine. All right. So anyway, continue. It says, the UN Charter was signed at the San Francisco Conference by representatives of 51 states on June 26, 1945, and came into force on October 24th, 1945. All right. And this date is universally celebrated as United Nations Day. The Charter formulates the purposes and principles of activities of the UN and its member nations, the functions and powers of its organs, procedures, and financing. The statute of the United Nations International Court of Justice is an integral part of the UN Charter. The Soviet Union and other peace-loving states succeeded in recording in the Charter the effective principles of maintaining world peace and security, the sovereign equality of large and small states, and other provisions which allow to make the UN a true instrument of peace and cooperation. Interesting. It says, the most important principle is that the unanimity of permanent members of the UN Security Council in making decisions on peace and security matters. The chief UN organs are the General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, which is known as ECOSOC, right? Because, they always abbreviate everything. Yo, I'm busy. Stop. Cut it out. It says Trusteeship Council, the International Court of Justice, and the Secretariat. So these are all part of the organs of the general of the UN. Okay, the chief UN organs, right? Because you have the members and you have the organs, right? It says because again, that's a sign that this is a corporation, all right? Because within a corporation is where you have members, okay, and organs, all right. It says the UN structure also includes specialized agencies and numerous subsidiary organs, committees, and commissions. Since 1982, the UN Secretary General has been Xavier Perez de Cuellar. Now it's Antonio Gutierrez. Okay, and I believe the previous one was Kofi Annan, if I'm not mistaken. All right, but he passed away, I think, not too long ago. Okay, it says the UN headquarters are in New York. You know, I passed by there many times. It's on where's that? Not Chambers Street. It's right between Lexington Ave and I think Madison. 40-something street, somewhere around there. 30-something, 40-something, around there. In Midtown Manhattan. All right, it says according to its charter, the UN purposes are to maintain international peace and security, and to that end, to take effective collective measures for the prevention and removal of threats to the peace, and for the suppression of acts of aggression or other breaches of the peace, and to bring about by peaceful means adjustment or settlement of international disputes or situations which might lead to a breach of the peace, to develop friendly relations among nations, and to take other appropriate measures to strengthen universal peace, to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, or humanitarian character, promote and encourage respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion, to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations in the attainment of these common ends. And we know that's all a whole bunch of BS. Okay, because again, they say all these nice things to get their foot in the door. And then once they get their foot in the door, that foot goes up your ass. That's how they work. Okay, that's how Esau works. All right. So for them to push this rhetoric of, oh, we pushing for some whatever inclusion and no religious discrimination and all that BS. But meanwhile, then they're going to say what you guys are preaching is hate and it's anti-Semitic and we can't allow you to say it. But I thought you said you promote equality. I thought you promote equality. I thought you don't discriminate, against religion, race, language, or sex. So how come whenever we say what we saying, you pushing this concept of, or you allowing these Jays to push this whole thing of, we're gonna create an ADL and say that this is anti-Semiticism. Well, I thought so where's the UN at? Why can't they jump in and say, no, you can't call them a hate group or you can't call them anti-Semitic, because they haven't really done anything of hate. All they're doing is preaching about their heritage, about their nationality, right? Are we not free to believe what we want to believe? So if you niggas claim that you're the true people of the Most High, and we say no, we are the people of the Most High, how come you get to say it but we can't say it? How come we're both Shemitic, right? But you claim to be Semitic? Like what is that? What the hell is that? You come up with your own shit just to create this hostility against the truth. Guess what? It's not going to work. Okay, and the UN was created, right? Really pushed by the Jays. All right, it was just another deceptive plan to bring about this so-called New World Order. That's all it is. Okay, think about the name, United Nations. I mean, come on, all nations becoming one, uniform. All right, under one banner. Okay, so when they say, oh, we're gonna encourage respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms for all, without distinction as to race, sex, blah blah blah. You gotta understand what they really mean is, we're gonna strip away all those things. Whatever makes you separate and different, we have to eliminate that, so we can make everyone into one. We can make all into one. Okay, what's that? E pluribus unum. E pluribus unum. I think that's what it's Latin for out of many one. Okay, e pluribus unum. All right. So it says, the UN member nations shall be guided by the principles of sovereign equality of all states, for fulfillment of obligations in good faith under the UN Charter, peaceful settlement of international disputes, non-use of force or threat of force, and non-interference in the internal affairs of other states. Ooh, right? So they're not supposed to get involved, right? Even though they say all these different things, at the same time, we're just not gonna get involved in like whatever you guys do. We're not gonna interfere. Okay, But now, fast forward 2024, going into 2025, they say, no, 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 no. As a matter of fact, all you nations are going to be under one banner, and everything we say is going to go for every last one of you. So does that mean that they're going to interfere in states' disputes, international disputes? Well, they're going to be calling the shots. So there will be no disputes. See, everyone is under one banner. So where are the disputes coming from? No, it's all uniformed. Okay. So it says, the use of force or threat of force and non-interference in the internal affairs of other states. Each member shall assist the organization in any action it takes in accordance with the charter. Okay. The activities of the UN have made a noticeable contribution to ensuring world peace and security. The UN, well, that they're definitely not doing their jobs then, because you see what's going on in the Middle East. You see how everyone, for some reason, is just quiet about this whole Israel situation. And at some point, the Lord's going to put the spirit on these Arabs to turn up. Okay, because again, as according to biblical prophecy, right, the least of the flock shall draw them out is what we're seeing right now. Okay, and that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing the preparation into World War III happening on a global nuclear scale. When I say global, I mean these major countries from these different parts of the world are going to all come together to fight in that land. All right, in that area known as the Valley of Jehoshaphat. Okay, what is known as the Middle East. Okay, fraudulently known as the Middle East. Right. So continuing, it says, the UN was instrumental in liberating many countries and peoples from colonial dependence. Many important international agreements were worked out within the framework of the UN or under its aegis. The UN considers questions concerning the prevention of war, disarmament, and peaceful settlement of disputes, and has adopted numerous constructive resolutions on these matters. The USSR favors the increasing role played by the UN in strengthening peace and developing international cooperation. The role played by the newly independent states making up the majority of the membership has noticeably increased. In matters discussed in the UN, they ever more frequently oppose the aggressive design of the US and its Western allies. Very interesting. I don't know what that means. The US is openly displeased at the organization's efforts to effect disarmament, establish just international economic relations, and resolve the global problems, and at the growing criticism in recent years at the UN of Israeli actions and the situation in Chile and South Africa. Specifically, and again, this is back in the 80s that this was written, right? 70s, 80s, around there. Okay, it says, and the growing criticism in recent, I think it might be in the 90s. Salakia. Let me see. Yeah, I believe this book was written in the 90s. All right, so a lot of information, of course, has been updated over the time. So you just bear with me on that. All right, so continuing, it says, specifically in the course of voting on a number of resolutions on disarmament and international security at the 40th General Assembly session, the U.S. voted against on 33 occasions, 6 times in total isolation. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. 33 and 6. Reflected at the UN is a struggle of two opposite courses in international politics. One anti-imperialist, peaceful, peace-loving, and progressive. That's when they have the whole, alphabet people coming in, right? And other reactionary and pro-imperialist. In violation of the UN principles enshrined in its charter, Western states, the US first and foremost, have been trying to use the organization to further their selfish goals. What's new? Pursuing a policy inimical to universal peace. Right, now let's look up that word inimical real quick, see what that means. Sounds like opposing, but let's see. Inimical. What's that? Where we got that? There you go. Inimical. There you go. It says unfriendly, an enemy, hostile. Okay. Going into the word enemy, one hateful word. Yeah. So yep, inimical. Right. So hostile. So saying it says the U.S. first and foremost have been trying to use the organization to further their selfish goals, pursuing a policy inimical to universal peace, meaning pursuing a policy that goes strictly or harshly against universal peace, right? That's what the U.S. stands for, or what they believe in, right? Because remember, Biden said, "Oh, it's going to be a new world order out there, and we have to be the one to lead it," or some shit like that, right? It says the Soviet Union believes that the way to make the UN more effective is for all members unswervingly to abide by the Charter principles and for cooperation to be strengthened among all the peace-loving forces in the organization. Okay, so this is what they had, all right, back in the 90s about things that, how the UN came about, right? And then eventually you had UNESCO, you had UNIDO, all these different things. Lord willing, we'll get into another day if the spirit hits me on that. Okay, but let's read a little bit about this UN Pact for the Future and see what they're talking about here. All right, so this is dated September 9th, 2020. No, September 23rd, like 2024. And it says, on September 22nd, 2024, world leaders gathered at the UN headquarters in New York adopted the potentially game-changing Pact for the Future. They did so by consensus, with a small group of just 7 countries holding out, having failed to pass a last-minute amendment tabled by Russia, most likely for domestic consumption. The centerpiece of the Summit of the Future is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine, kind of image, right? Reimagine the multilateral system and steer humanity on a new world order, new course to meet existing commitments and solve long-term challenges. Interesting. The pact is seen by many in the so-called Global South as both a well-intended and necessary collective effort at UN renewal, as well as a personal legacy for a quite popular UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. So because this guy has his own personal shit going on, the whole world got to suffer for that? Get out of here, bro. It's the same clown that said, "Oh, we're no longer in global warming, we're in global boiling." Like, how do you sound? How do you sound saying all that BS? Like, they desperately want this NWO so bad because, again, that screams power, like unadulterated power, raw power. Okay? Because they have it all. But now, in order to actually control people, that's the ultimate form of power. That will make them gods on this earth. And if they could possibly do it where they could see hip the elect, right? If they could possibly do that, then that means that there'll be no flesh to be saved. That means there'll be no kingdom. That means that they're going to basically have their time forever. They become immortal with AI and so on and so forth. Okay? That's their goal. That's in their warped mind. All right? Their vile basis of having mind. This is what they think they can do. All right? But little do they know that the Heavenly Father is requiring their life this very night. So it says, Gutierrez told the summit that the Pact's aim was to bring multilateralism back from the brink at a time when the world is heading off the rails. Despite its inherent limits document, the Pact does provide pointers of what should be achieved in other forums, including the IMF, at COP, and at the G20. It comes across as an unusual document in its admission of how multilateralism is currently failing. See, so man, multilateralism. In other words, how different nations, work together. Okay. Just give me 1 second here. Continuing says, the document covers reform and expansion of the UN Security Council to make the body more. Remember when we were reading earlier about the conception of the UN, it was using terms like members and it was using terms like organs, right? Those are things that you find on a human body. In this case, you see what it says. It says the document covers reform and expansion on the UN or of the UN Secretary Council to make the body more representative of the 21st century. See, as recently proctored by Atlas, a UN role in governing artificial intelligence, the phasing out of fossil fuels in energy systems, reform of multilateral financial institutions. That means the how countries work together economically, right? Financial institutions, banks, and so on and so forth. It says a recommitment to full nuclear disarmament and modernizing UN peacekeeping so it evolves into war prevention. How are they going to do that? Through AI. Okay? They just said it. Atlas. All right? The pact includes 56 actions on issues including eradicating poverty, mitigating climate change, achieving gender equality, promoting peace and protecting civilians, and reinvigorating the multilateral system to seize the opportunities of today and tomorrow. Interesting. So how do they plan on doing this? They have to create a crisis. That's the only way. They have to create a big enough crisis, and that's what you're about to start seeing, I believe, through the month of October all throughout. Okay, you have the crisis of the ports being on the port workers being on strike. Within 2 weeks of this port strike thing, you're gonna start feeling the effects of it. Within 6 weeks, you might see protests in the streets. Okay, you might see people driving crazy, going wild, buck wild in the streets, man. You know, this Halloween, so-called Halloween, is going to be a very scary one this year. All right, all these migrants and all that. This could very well be the year where you're going to start seeing the kickoff of Jacob's trouble for real, for real. All right, and all year we've been warning you the hopeful year of Jacob's trouble, the hopeful year of Jacob's trouble, the hopeful year of Jacob's trouble. And now we're in the time where we're about to start seeing Jacob's trouble pick off, man, right away. All right, you got this whole hurricane situation down south. They're saying that it's caused such a disaster. I mean, they were saying that this shit went all the way up to Chicago, or was it? Yeah, Chicago, if I'm not mistaken. And you know, I was thinking about it. I said, how come this thing goes from south all the way up north? And as it's going, it normally when a hurricane hits landfall, right, it kind of slows down a little bit. But here it is. This shit keeps on picking up. This shit traveled all the way up north. And they're saying there's another one brewing in the Gulf right now as we speak. The Gulf of Mexico. There's another one, you know, making its rounds around towards Babylon. You know, which of course we know by now that Esau has the technology to be able to create, you know, these kind of weather situations, right, through the HARP. All right. So they have the ability to manufacture weather crises. Okay, I forget exactly who said this, but somebody said that he who controls the weather controls the world, or some shit like that. All right. So these devils have this, you know, this God complex, and they use all these different means. Some could be the UN, the World Health Organization, the World Economic Forum, right? All these different groups that they have and avenues to push for the same very narrative, which ultimately will be the fulfillment of biblical prophecy. Okay, because what we're seeing now is the build up to what Apostle John saw in the book of Revelation. Okay, the ultimate enslavement of all people and the control of all things. All right, so that they could be looked at as the gods of this earth. Okay, and it's all being done in a form of deception. All right, it says, read the full draft resolution containing the pact for the future here, whose section 59 says, quote, we recognize that children and youth are distinct groups from future generations. We must ensure the decision making and policy making today takes greater account of the needs and interests of the generations to come. Right, so they're building the infrastructure for the future. But again, this is a futile effort. Okay, the future has nowhere where Esau is still ruling. This is your rulership and it's going down. All right. So you're going down with it. Okay. You don't get a second chance or a third. You're going down with this one. Okay. Because you're in the stage where the Lord said, right around this time is when you start going crazy. Revelation 12:12. And that's when the judgment comes upon your ass. Okay. It says not, and that they are balanced with the needs and interests of current generations. We have annexed a declaration on future generations to the pact for the future that details our commitments in this regard. Okay, so there you go. There you have it. Now, some of the things that they plan to do, which is all lies, is they said sustainable development and financing for development. All right, and when you hear sustainable development, it goes years back. It started off with Agenda 21. All right, Agenda 21 with the sustainable development goals and all that, where basically you own nothing and you be happy. Right? Agenda of the 21st century starting the year 2021. And then they said, nah, this thing is not really picking up how we would like for it to pick up. So let's push it back a little further. So then it became Agenda 2030. Right? So Agenda 21 is just a modified, Agenda 2030 is just a modified, modernized version of Agenda 21. Okay, so that's now it's including AI. They're like, okay, look, it looks like AI is going to be what we can use to control these people. But in order for us to get to that point, we gotta seduce them, we gotta coerce them, we gotta invite them into it. You know what I mean? And then we gotta tempt them into it, the temptation, right? And once they opt into it, we got the control. Right. So then they have a whole bunch of, I guess you could call it a table of contents. Right. And it just goes down pages and pages and pages of a whole bunch of wickedness. All right. That they have planned. All right. Look at this. Yeah, I might have to take time and read all through this shit and see if I could debunk. I could decipher what they're saying, because, this sounds like their plan being put in plain sight. All right, their plan is being put in plain sight, and if you're able to decipher it and decode it, you're onto something. All right, yeah, because they put it right in your face, but they know people are not taught, like in school, how they teach you how to think. You're not taught how to understand this type of lingo. All right, and they do that by design. Okay, because it's written in pure English, but the way they're saying it and what those words they're choosing to use means is not what it means to the average person's mind. Okay, that's why it's always important to look up words, because they use words from its original meaning, not from what it's perceived or its secondary meaning today. Okay, let's see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think I'll tackle that in another video, so this one is not too long. But let's close it out with this, because we are in those times. Okay, we are in those times, and again, like I said, the whole port situation, I think that's going to blow up into something more than it should be, right? But again, this is all, we're at that time, you know what I mean? So it's just going to be calamity after calamity, no breaks. This is all happening all at once. When you really look at what's going on over the past few months, everything is coming together all at once, man. And was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Randomly, the word blackout popped in my head. I said, damn, bro, what? So then I started looking up, is there any blackouts in the States? Because randomly like that, I was like, let me look it up and see what's going on. I think they were saying that down south, over, 4 million people were out of power because of the whole Helen situation. Helen, whatever, right? So who knows, man? Who knows how long it's going to take for them to be in that kind of condition? And then you couple that with, by Tuesday, the port workers going to be on strike. Within the next couple of weeks, I'll say the middle of October into the end of October, America is going to be completely different. Like, you're going to see the stress. You're going to see how it's going to affect businesses. Like, it's going to affect just your daily life on some real. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how close we are to this thing going down the drain. And you couple that with the so-called migrants that are over here, they're going to exhaust whatever is left, and it's going to be done quickly. Things are going to be much more expensive, and you're going to have a scarcity on products. Remember, we used to say that you're going to go into a store and there'll be nothing in there? Let's see if we can get that real quick. All right. Man, we are in those times. We are in those times. All right. There's a book of Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 1. It says, remember now thy creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. Right? So that's what all of us, when we came to this truth, at that time, all the things that you're seeing now wasn't happening. All right? We were telling you that it was going to happen, and now here we are. Okay? This is while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. So while you still have things being normal as they are, because very soon things are going to be so abnormal that you're going to be like, yo, what the you know? And that's that's what's about to happen to the average Americans. Okay. So continuing, it says, verse 3, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, right? That's where you have these financiers and stockholders and stakeholders, I should say, right? All these so-called major people that make things basically run in this society. They saying what? In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, the stock market and so on and so forth, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out the window be darkened. Right? So the grinders ceasing is what? Is going into what? The economy coming to a halt. Okay, because now you have truckers not able to do what they got to do because the ports are pretty much on strike. You know, now it's understandable why that's all happening, because they're fighting against automation, right? Which is Esau is using machines, all right, to process a lot of this these shipments and stuff, right? And when you think of it from a business perspective, that is a very financially sound thing to do, right? Because you don't have to pay out any labor, right? Because you have machines working, and the machines are much faster. They're much more efficient, unless they break down, right? But even if they do break down, how long is that going to take for them to fix them and put them back up, right? With all the constant maintenance that they do, it takes time for them to break down, right? So rather than having these dock workers, some of them nowadays, people don't want to work, you know? So they go in there, they're dragging their feet, they're doing their, it's costing a lot of money. You know, things are getting to stores a lot later now. You know, it's like it's causing a problem. And that's all part of the supply chain. So these corporations are like, yo, listen, we're not going to pay you, 70% or 80% raises, right? Just for you to come sit around, be on your phone and not even do work like that. We're not with that type of shit. We're going to shift into automation, because everything is shifting over into automation. Soon it's going to affect the truck drivers too. Okay? They're coming up with trucks that drive on their own. So they're not going to need truck drivers anymore. Okay? They're not going to need truck drivers anymore. Right? So this whole AI thing that they're talking about, even with the UN, is what they're talking about. All right? Setting up the stage for automation to take over humanity and to control it. You know? You will own nothing and you will be happy. In other words, you are a slave to society. You're a slave to the system. You're a slave to robots. Okay, and they're going to be the ones to control the robots from their underground tunnels or whatever the hell they think they're going to be doing. Okay, but yeah, this is what they have planned. I might follow up with another video going into a little bit more details as to what, if this comes into fruition, what this is actually going to mean, what they actually is, what's actually going to be happening. Right, we're going to go into that as well. All right, so I'm gonna leave it off there, Lowell, and you were edified and informed. In closing, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Brachah Kodash, the Wadi Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai. And until next time, Shalom.